The Spanish language, also known as Castilian, is the second most spoken language in the world by number of native speakers, only behind Mandarin Chinese, and its expansion and globalization are growing rapidly. But what is the origin of Spanish? Get ready to embark on a journey through time and discover how this language was forged, learning about the origin and evolution of Spanish or Castilian. According to the Royal Spanish Academy, the word Spanish comes from the Provençal Español, which in turn comes from the medieval Latin Hispaniolis, meaning from Hispania. That was the name by which the territories of present-day Spain and Portugal were known in the Roman Empire. Just like other Romance languages such as Portuguese, Catalan, Galician, French, Italian, and Romanian, Spanish or Castilian comes from Latin, since a large part of the Iberian Peninsula was conquered by the Roman Empire. However, let's see who was in these lands before the Roman. Around the 6th century before Christ, the Iberians began to mix with the Celts, who were scattered populations in the Iberian Peninsula. Just like other peoples such as the Tartessians, the Celtiberians, and so on, whose languages, called pre-Romanic, would leave their mark on the Latin that would come later. However, all these peoples lacked linguistic unity. Later on in the 3rd century before Christ, the process of Romanization began, marking the start of the glorious era of the Roman Empire, which gave the name Hispania to these territories. Like all the great empires in history, the Western Roman Empire would not last forever, and it saw its fall around the year 467 of our era. And by that time, classical Latin had already lost its importance, so it was quickly replaced by Vulgar Latin, which had already been influenced by Greek, the Celtic, and other Germanic languages. Immediately after the fall of the Roman Empire, Germanic peoples known as the Visigoths occupied Spain and dominated the peninsula until the year 711, which is when the Muslim army crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and defeated them. Part of the linguistic legacy of the Visigothic people includes words like hostile, truce, and guardian. The Muslims occupied almost the entire peninsula, except for the northern lands, and formed the province called Al-Andalus, later consolidating it into the Caliphate of Granada. Meanwhile, in the north, the Christian kingdoms would prevail, giving rise to the Romance language varieties, such as Catalan, Asturian, Aragonese, Galician, and of course Castilian. The latter consisted of a primitive dialect in the medieval county of Castile. Later, it would become the Kingdom of Castile in the central region, north of what is now Spain. Shortly after the Arab occupation, a process called the Spanish Reconquista began, in which the Christian kingdoms gained territory through successive dynastic unifications, like the union of Leon and Galicia, with Fernando III of Castile confining the Arab rule to the south. Between the end of the 10th century and the beginning of the 11th century, the first manuscripts in a Romance dialect, clearly distinguishable from Latin, were written. These were called the Emilian glosses, originating from the monastery of San Milan in the autonomous community of La Rioja in northern Spain. These are considered the oldest archaic writings attributed to Spanish, and they were notes written alongside Latin texts so that people who didn't speak that language could understand them. The creation of a standard Spanish language based on the Castilian dialect began in the 13th century with King Alfonso X, known as El Sabio, who adopted Castilian as the official language for translating documents and official decrees. He founded the School of Translators of Toledo, which for the first time published works in a language other than Latin. It was a complete cultural revolution of the time. The consolidation of Castilian as the official language of Spain arose as a result of the Queen's marriage. Isabel I of Castile and Fernando II of Aragon, who were called the Catholic monarchs. And finally, around the year 1492, these monarchs managed to permanently drive out the Arabs with the capture of Granada, which was the last Muslim settlement on the peninsula, putting an end to more than 700 years of occupation. This period left no more and no less than around 4,000 words of Arabic origin in the Spanish language, such as, for example, pillow, olive, chess, guitar, zero, assassin, hopefully, carrot, and so on. At the time when the Moors were expelled from Spain and the unification of the Spanish kingdoms was being celebrated, Antonio de Nebrija published his work Grammar in 1492, which is considered the first grammar treatise of the Spanish language and the first of a European Latin language. Coincidentally, in that same year, Cristobal Colón, with the financial support of the Catholic monarchs, set out on his journey, which history would come to know as the discovery of America, through which the Spanish language would see its opportunity to expand in the new American colonies. The native languages of America, mainly Aymara, Nahuatl, Guarani, Maya, Quechua, Chibcha, and Taino, made numerous contributions to the Spanish lexicon, such as in the case of cancha, carpa, avocado, chocolate, jaguar, shark, canoe, hummingbird, hurricane, cannibal, etc. By the 16th and 17th centuries, considered the golden age of Spanish literature, the spread of Spanish throughout the world was unstoppable, and the language evolved until it became practically what it is today. Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra wrote his masterpiece Don Quixote of La Mancha between 1605 and 1616, and it became the most translated Spanish language book in the world. In the 18th century, more precisely in the year 1713, the Royal was created, Spanish Academy, whose purpose is to give Spanish a definitive standard and to prevent improper usage. This would govern linguistic unity on a global level. More than 2 centuries later, in the year 1991, the Cervantes Institute was created, which is a public institution with the goal of promoting and teaching the Spanish language all over the world. As a fun fact about Spanish, it is currently the second most spoken language in the United States after English. Spanish is the 3rd most written language on the internet, and almost 8% of internet users communicate in this language. However, it ranks 2nd on social networks, both on Facebook and Twitter, and it is also the 2nd most important language on Wikipedia. The 5 countries with the most Spanish speakers are Mexico with 132 million, and the United States with 42 million native Spanish speakers, and more than 11 million who speak it as a second language. Colombia with 50 million, Spain with 47 million, and Argentina with 44 million. And that's all for today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to this channel. I invite you to also turn on the notification bell so you'll know when there's a new video. See you soon.